Welcome back to another episode of Fantasy Football Friendly Focus. Well, it should be the last week, so it's just a recap week. So, championship week was for a lot of teams last week. So, we're just gonna do a recap of fantasy football this year. So, joining me is my good buddy Tu from Arizona. Glad to have you back on the show.
Just so you all know, I'm really sick right now, but I promised Randy I would do this, so here I am.
We don't have to be next to each other, so it's fine. I can't get sick through the screen or anything like that, So
for now.
But
but yes, it's nice to be back. Nice to be talking some foosball with you, Andy.
Yep.
Let's get it going.
Congratulations on making it to the finals against my brother. I know there's like a mishap with the last game, but prayers to Damar Hamlin. Hopefully he heals up quickly. That's the more important thing right now. We can figure everything out with the winnings and everything they got later. So I don't think that there's ever been a season like this for fantasy football for me, like ever. Like with the amount of injuries, inconsistency with the playing, with the players. With the level of players that they have that they've been playing, such as a low level, teams not succeeding, backups coming in. It's so unpredictable, like more than any year, even the years of COVID. How about you? What do you think, too?
I don't know. For me, actually, I've been pretty lucky this season. Fantasy gods have blessed me. No real big injuries to my big players. Can't say that about the last 2 years. But yeah, this season, like I said, the fantasy gods have blessed me with no injuries. Got pretty far. Lucky was probably actually you just took the word out of my mouth. I got lucky on some weeks that gave me the number one seed. So, but we all know that when you play fantasy football, luck is a factor, obviously. So yes, I did get lucky a few weeks here and there.
Yeah. I just you think that you get like a good quarterback, and I think that one of that position was probably affected the most. If anything, running backs there was a good amount. Wide receivers, same thing. You think like a Brady, a Rodgers would, Stafford, Matt Ryan, at least do pretty decent. Give you a good couple wins, but the inconsistency and the low level of play was just, it was astounding. Especially for these type of quarterbacks.
Yeah, I think we had the conversation that based on how the game is played right now, based on how football is played, I don't want to give away my strategy for next season, but it's very, very obvious. No matter how you're scoring, how the scoring is in your league, a quarterback is probably one of the most important things, which is why next year I'm getting one of the primo quarterbacks no matter what. I don't care what round, what pick I am, first pick, 10th pick, it doesn't matter. I'm getting a good quarterback. That is something that's really obvious this season.
I couldn't agree with you more. I think I waited maybe to like the later rounds to get a quarterback, and I thought I should stack my team up with good wide receivers and good running backs, and that make the core of my team. Little did I know that my quarterback was probably the most affected position, probably that and next to tight end. Everything else was all the other positions were cool, and I was able to stream defense every week. But quarterback was hurting the most. I ended up like flip flopping a lot. Just picking up a streamer quarterback. It's definitely going to make me change my perspective on how I draft for next year. Like I said with quarterbacks, I think that's very key also for wide receivers, because my method, as I mentioned in one of my earlier videos this year, was running back, always first. But there's a lot of running backs now, and my team was pretty good with running backs. It wasn't good with a lot of other positions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So when it comes to running backs, I actually did the running back draft this year. Which, I mean, if you get Jack Henry and Saquon, they can carry you, which they did actually carry me. But if I did not get a decent quarterback or like a consistent quarterback, probably would have killed me more. And then when it comes to like late round running backs, and you think about like the rookies, like what was it, Brees Hall before he got hurt, he was killing it. Kenneth Walker on the Seahawks, nobody knew those guys were gonna pop up the way they did. And what's the guy, the Houston quarterback, Pierce?
Yeah.
What's his name? Yeah,
Yeah,
right.
Pierce.
So
And then there
so
was
those
Jonathan
guys,
Knight too with the Jets. Yeah.
yeah. So those guys basically prove to you that you don't need to do running back early like how we used to. Now it's all about just like getting a balanced team. So my strategy next year is just to get a really good balanced team.
Yeah,
And
I think also it affects well pretty much how where and when you're drafting. Like so if you're drafting early, I never like to draft early because then all the pressure's on you. Like Jonathan Taylor, him and the
big
entire
bust.
Colts have been was a entire big disappointment this entire year. So and once that fell, once he got picked, then the dominoes kind of fell after that because then you could see who's left. So I think for my strategy, it's okay. I'm giving advice for fantasy football for people who don't watch it. That's absolutely fine because, everyone's going to be playing differently, and it's just based on luck and what you pick. But yeah, for sure, uh, I would say if you are first, then do select the best player that they suggest to you. And then, of course, it's probably not going to be Jonathan Taylor next year. It's probably going to be somebody else. It's probably going to be Justin Jefferson for sure, probably. Um, he'll probably be number one. And yeah, if I'm number one pick, I would probably get him. I would change my method. I would probably go, depending on what running backs there are, then I would probably pick a running back, probably a wide receiver, and then yeah, I would like you said, I would probably pick for one of the younger quarterbacks that were killing it this year for sure because um, it seems like the veterans don't either they're getting too old or it's just the team the age is finally caught up to them.
I think it's a factor of age. Like for example, think about Aaron Rodgers, Brady. Those guys are just geezers at this point. But also another like important factor is like uh, a quarterback that runs. That is actually more important than it was before. Because you think about guys like obviously the primo dual threat quarterback is Jalen Hurts. But then even if you have guys like uh, Justin Fields, right? Like Justin Fields, the Bears are just a terrible team, but because he has that running capability, he's able to just get you more points than, for example, like you said, Brady or Rodgers. And he's not
Yeah.
even that great either. It's just that running element that he provides you just gives you so many points.
Yeah, and just imagine if they surround him with some actual talent, like some receivers and stuff like that, and imagine how much better he would be. Like
Yeah.
a good choice would be a Herbert or Burrow early too, because they're loaded with weapons. They have good running games. They have a good offensive line to help block for them, and then they've shown year in and year out that they've been playing pretty well. So yeah, I mean, don't be surprised next year if you see a lot of those, picks that that you thought that were gonna last in the later rounds going to be picked up pretty soon. So definitely going to change up my strategy. Definitely going to have you on again to provide a guide for people for next year. That'd be kind of fun. It's going to be definitely a mix and match season for sure. But I think a lot of defenses as well, like over underwhelmed. Like Tampa Bay. LA Rams, that they're supposed to do a lot better. They'll just due to injuries or just maybe inconsistent play, scheduling. I don't know, but yeah, it's just a lot of factors. It's a lot of coin flip. A lot of it has to do with luck. You know, even if you had like a good quarterback and then they went down, like second, third string guys, they're just too much of a risk, and then just to get anybody on the waiver wire is tough, like who was it? The Jets switched back and forth quarterbacks. Kyler Murray got lost early. Matt Stafford got lost early. Matt Ryan got benched due to inconsistencies. Yeah, if you didn't have any of those primo quarterbacks, man, you were pretty screwed.
Or you did what I did and just pick up Geno Smith and just randomly give you consistent numbers. Really wasn't for him. It wasn't for that wire pickup. I probably would not have really. I probably would have made playoffs, but I probably wouldn't have made that far.
Yeah,
I definitely would have got the number one seed for sure.
yeah, it's nice to see like that. And Trevor Lawrence taking a big step from last year too to play really well too. He'll be a pretty popular pickup. And his team looks like they're pretty good on offense, especially with that the good wide receivers, the good run game, and the tight end and everything like that. So he'll probably be a good pickup next year too. So yeah, I would suggest probably maybe in this order. Probably if you can get one of those stud wide receivers like a Diggs, a Cup when he's healthy, a Jefferson, go get him first. Like I hesitated this year. That's what I did. I think, oh, I can already get a pretty good receiver later on. I mean, there are good receivers, but sometimes it's hard to get on those elite receivers. So get on those guys because they're always good for a touch. At least 100 yards, maybe a touchdown or so. And yeah, I found that I had the running backs were plenty, like we mentioned earlier, that some guy could step in and play well, because they can run and catch the ball compared to a wide receiver that they can like pretty much catch the ball, So unless you're playing in PPR.
Yeah. I mean, if you think about how like the game is played nowadays, I would pick like my order of importance would be quarterback, wide receiver. I mean, when you talk about tight end, it's really hard because if you don't get Kelsey, it's basically Kelsey, Mark Andrews, and whoever the hell else. That doesn't
Well,
matter.
Kittle
Like
has kind of stepped up from recent weeks. I think it's just due with Colin Brock Purdy coming in and
Purdy.
using him more. So
Yeah, but that like you sacrifice 10 weeks to get a few weeks from a tight end. That's why I said they don't matter. They don't like you just hope that they get at least 5 points. That every time I saw my lineup was like, hey Joe Everett, I'm just expecting 5 points max from you. Other than that, I
I
have
think
to rely on other.
I think Gus Johnson with that Saints actually was a pleasant surprise. So I think my advice and a strategy for next year for tight ends is just see whatever one's available for you when it's your turn to pick. Get them, see how they do, and then later on, in the season, there's always tight ends that perform well. Like Evan Ingram did really well. Like he was on the waiver for most of the year. Excellent pickup. Toward the end of the season. So I would say same with like I just mentioned, Gus Johnson did really well toward the end of the season as well. So just kind of maybe pick a tight end, whoever the starter is, and then see how they go. Ride with them for a little bit, and then watch the games and see how the other tight ends are doing, and then pick them up maybe as a backup, and then maybe swap them in and out. That's if you're not able to get Kelsey or Andrews.
Exactly. And then when you're talking about also wide receivers, that's why I mentioned earlier that getting a running back early is not important anymore because the way that most teams use wide receivers too, they are the big play threats. But if you notice that this year, they're also utilized a lot in the screens. So like if you watch Justin Jefferson, he can make that like 50 plus yard catch, or they'll like sling it to him in like 5 yards, and he'll just because he's so fast and so good that he can probably just get a touchdown from getting a 5 yard catch from like
Yeah,
midfield or
yeah,
something like that.
absolutely. Yeah, there's a lot of big plays from wide receivers. So yeah, just to get them, it's good. I mean, I'm not saying it's like I'm not discounting like a Keenan Allen or Mike Williams or Mike Evans or Godwin, any of those guys, and Metcalf or Lockett. Those guys are still really good, but sometimes those elite guys, they're just too tough to pass on, especially if they're number one on the team. Like they're clear cut number one. They get a lot of looks and a lot of catches. You have to get them because if there's like I mentioned, those other guys, they're like ones and twos on team. So you're not exactly sure if they're not going to get a lot of looks their way. Because the ball spread around.
Yeah, it's all about just like getting the most value of who's available. Because it used to be you have a set strategy, right? You have a set strategy, then you pick the guys that you need. Now it's all about like the way I look at it is you just have to get the most value out of uh, your picks, basically. And whatever the value may be, it's just whoever is available to you when it's your turn to draft.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. It's like even though if you're coming up and then it's like a starter on a bad team, say like the Texans or something like that, then you'd probably still want to pick them up because they're starter on the team. That might play well too. But that's a good thing about later on in the season because there's guys that perform well, and then there's waiver pickups and everything like that. And you can always add and drop guys, so that's nothing wrong with just stacking your team first and then assessing your team throughout the season, and then picking up different guys and rotating them in and out.
That's all true. And then what would you say is like the biggest surprise for this season?
Biggest what? I'm sorry.
The biggest surprise of like what were you like shocked about or not expecting? Because there was a lot.
Well, you know what? The Jaguars, the Jaguars and the Lions, right? So we thought they were going to be the laughing stocks of this NFL game, man. But both have a chance to get to the playoffs, and I'm really happy about that because I actually want other teams to get in. Like Jared Goff, like they kind of brushed him aside, like they thought he was nothing anymore, like he was done. But actually, he's still rocking it over there. I mean, he doesn't have like the best surrounding cast with him, but he's making do, and they're just a win away from going to the playoffs. And same with the Jaguars. It goes to show you that you work with what you got, and then if you had one of those quarterbacks, they probably could have taken you to the championship too. They play tough. I mean, the defense is not always that great, but if you give those guys weapons and time, man, they make it work. Sometimes the best quarterbacks out there, and you give them all the stuff, and they can't do anything with it. It goes to show you that you don't have to be on the best team to do that.
Actually, them having a bad defense is actually low key a good thing. The reason why is because if you had for example, right, like the Lions, if you have a bad defense and you have a guy like Goff, and if you're losing, he's just kind of slinging it to what is it, Amon-Ra St. Brown. Like it's not a bad thing.
Garbage time touchdown. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like those small things also matter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just feel like same with like Kirk Cousins. Like he is so hit or miss like this year. Like for a guy that's on a team that's so talented, like we mentioned with Justin Jefferson, Adam Thielen, and now they add Hawkinson and they have Cook as well. Like I mean, that's most quarterbacks' dream right there. Like a good team like that. And 1 week he'll play really well, and 1 week he'll play really bad. So it's like he'll help you 1 week and then he'll screw you another week. So that's like not a surprise for me, but kind of like. Why a lot of people stay away from him. And sometimes if you look at the matchups, you're like, oh, that's a good matchup. But then, no. I mean, it's like he's too inconsistent. It's just teams that, that they just lack the quarterback, especially with a good surrounding cast. And I think another situation would be like the Washington Commanders. They have two pretty good running backs, a good amount of wide receivers. Defense is not bad, but it's just the quarterback. They keep shooting themselves in the foot. It either comes to Carson Wentz, Taylor Heineke, like they could definitely use, probably a new quarterback next year for sure. It's just a lot of. I think there's the quarterback class for the draft this year. I think it's really good. So that's why I think a lot of teams might get a lot of quarterbacks. So look out for that. I think that the draft is gonna get a lot of good players coming in. So that's gonna help with fantasy as well. How do you feel about adding like year one players, like guys that just come out of the draft?
I will answer that question before I answer that question, I think that Kirk Cousins is terrible. I think that he sucks. The only reason why he's kind of relevant is because of Justin Jefferson. I just want to say that because he's not good.
Yeah.
But new guys on the draft, the way I look at those guys is like if they're gonna be the number one, like so. Let's say they join a team that has terrible running, or there's a wide receiver that has terrible wide receivers. Those are probably the guys that I would pick, but I would pick them later in the rounds for value, and I'm talking about later because it's like a 50-50 gamble. And if we talk about like examples from this year, I'd probably say Breece Hall, like I said earlier, nobody was expecting that, right? And he's on the Jets, which is terrible, but he's so good that he will just give you a lot of points. And then, for example, another example is Dameon Pierce, the guy on the Texans. That team is terrible, but he runs really good and he'll get a lot of points. So that's how I look at it. If they provide some kind of value, I will try to get them later in the rounds.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. I really don't care if they're like a high draft pick or anything like that. Yeah, if they're going to a horrible team, it's growing pains. You don't know if they're gonna click right away or what. So yeah, they're definitely worth like a stash for sure. You kind of like it's good because then you can stash them, then you can assess how they play and see how they're doing. Like I remember when Herbert was drafted, and then they had Tyrod Taylor, and then like Tyrod Taylor got hurt, and then Herbert came in and just started killing it all of a sudden. So he was a stash for me, and I started him toward the end, and he got a lot of points for me. But yeah, those are guys that are good to stash. You never really want to start, especially like a running back. A running back that's going to be drafted high is most likely probably going to be the starter because it's a team that needs a running back, and they're probably going to push him in right away to start because the team doesn't have a run game. So there might be some pleasant surprise. There's Adrian Peterson, like Saquon Barkley. When they first started, they came in the league and they killed it, right? Because the league was probably not ready for these guys yet. But yeah, it's maybe a good thing to stash these guys. You know, like a Najee Harris when he first came in, we had Big Ben on a good team, but now it's on an average team. You know, so stock has probably dropped a lot. You know, so yeah, it's definitely wise to stash these guys away for your bench. You know, to see how they perform. And then there's nothing wrong with just dropping them later on because you don't really lose anything because then you can make space for your roster.
That's why they're called sleepers because you really never know. They could they could just been a waste of a pick, or they can actually help you win the championship, or at least get you really far in the season. So yeah, that's
Yeah,
how I feel about those guys.
yeah, because then later on, if they're just taking a spot on your bench, then you can always replace them later on, and it's not affecting you if you don't start them or anything at all. So,
hmm
but
It's a long season.
yeah. So what position do you think probably wasn't affected this season at all? We talked about quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers. All those positions.
hmm I still think the quarterback was the most important. My receiver is the second. My back's the third. The least important,
I mean, least impacted, like
in
kind of
terms of
like probably the most consistent position.
the most consistent position, it's pretty rough. But if I was to give an answer to that, it would be the quarterback position with the primo quarterbacks. And that's what
I would
because they can
say,
make up so much.
yeah, I would say the kickers because kickers did all pretty well. Like a lot of them did really well. All the ones that were supposed to performed well. Like Tucker, McPherson, Bass, like all those good teams. What's his guy's name on the Chiefs? I forgot his name, but they all,
But
yeah, Butker, yeah, and then like you have a Dicker the kicker actually come out of nowhere. Replaced Hopkins and did really well. So yeah, kicker was like a lot of kickers did well. Like I think was it McLaughlin from the Colts actually did pretty well too before they started sucking even more. But
Mhm.
kicker was like more pleasant surprise I think because like a lot of them scored a lot of points, a lot of high scoring games, a lot of opportunities for them to kick more extra points and field goals.
I think defenses too. Defense didn't really like go because when you look back like previous years, there were some years where defense was just getting like 15, 20 points, and they were making a big difference, and they were like winning weekly matchups. But I don't know. I think this year I didn't see many pick six. I didn't really see a lot of like touchdowns from defenses as it was before.
Yeah, there were good defenses, like like I said, the Tampa
Niners,
and LA Rams were bad, but you had Dallas that's pretty good, Philly is pretty good. You know,
Niners.
yeah, Niners the number one defense overall, all pretty good. And then if you're lucky to get them, you can stream them. Yeah, there was like no team. Not Niners have been pretty dominant, but no team had been like super dominant. Even the Niners gave up a lot of points to the Raiders. But for the most part, they were pretty consistent the whole year. So I think it's like a turning of the page. It's going to be like those teams that you think that like your Baltimores and your Pittsburghs that have really good defenses. It might turn to different teams that have good defenses, and I like to see like younger, newer teams have better chances to have good defenses. It's good to pick up defenses and play
Yeah,
them
those
and see.
old good defenses are. See, the thing is, like, for example, when you say the Steelers, right? Like, the reason why the Steelers was so good is because their offense was good. If you are a good defense, no matter how good you are, if your offense sucks and they're just always three and out, you're gonna get tired. And no matter how good you are, you're gonna get tired, and that defense is just not gonna be as great as it should be. That's
Yeah,
why my defense strategy is get a decent team defense and then stream when you need to. That's how I play the
absolutely. Yeah,
defense game.
I couldn't agree more. Like, you got to look at the matchups and play by week too. Like,
Mhm,
like hey, this team is playing this team, then you're definitely going to start that defense for sure,
mhm.
and then save your waivers. So, what would be your advice on like waivers and free agents like for next year?
I go ham as hell on the waivers. Look, if I see potential, like if I see any kind of potential, uh, I'm putting a waiver in there. Uh, Remember how I said that earlier that when it comes to fantasy football, there's that luck factor, and if you put a waiver on somebody and you get lucky, like 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 a sleeper player, then it's worth it to me. I don't care if I'm waiver number 8, waiver number 10. I'm putting a waiver no matter what if I feel like I need that person or they're gonna give me some kind of value. So that's how I feel about waivers. I think about waivers is that you also have to be strategic about it too,
Mm-hmm.
because it is valuable. And if you look at the waiver moves in any league, the guys that are probably in the playoffs or the guys that make it far are the ones that actually play the waiver wire. The waiver wire, I would say, is extremely important. My order of importance would be your draft, your waiver, and then how you play the waiver, how you play the guys that you get from the waiver.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I see the order of importance. But
So
yes, it's so important
yeah.
to play
So
correctly.
my strategy on the waivers is a little bit different than yours. So it's like I know because it's kind of crucial if you're high up on the waiver, right? And then you kind of
Mhm.
see that a player plays, like on a team, and then they perform well, right? So if they perform well, and then all of a sudden, some people are quick to pick them up. Like was it a Christian Stark that was with Green Bay, right? As soon as he scored those 3 touchdowns, and everyone went to pick him
Mhm.
up, right? And then it just kind of like went down like that a little bit after that, right? Because like they saw he scored 3 touchdowns, and then all of a sudden they want to pick him up right away, right? So the thing with me is I kind of wait and see. It's a wait and see thing. Like I wait kind of like so my a good example of this is would be when Rashad Penny got hurt with the Seahawks, right? And then season-ending injury, and Kenneth Walker came in and he played really well, right? So I waited and waited, and I got the number one waiver pick, and I picked up Kenneth Walker, like because I said, okay, this guy's showing flashes of good, good play. So I kind of wait for that thing, because I was like, I'm not so quick to pick up a guy that's just going to, have a good game one week and all of a sudden like disappear the next couple weeks. I think you said you talked to me about Romeo Dobbs with the Packers. Where he was a popular pickup too. Then he got hurt for a couple weeks and inconsistent play. My thing is just kind of a wait and see kind of thing. I like to frequent the free agent bin. Like to see maybe some guys that maybe overlooked or something. Maybe some guys that are
Mhm.
worth stashing for sure.
Yeah.
Because you can know that they could be a backup for sure. You read the stats and say that they played well backing up the main guy, and then or that you pick up, as they say, a handcuff, right? Because a lot of these guys are gonna be prone to getting hurt, so you can pick up a guy like a Madison with the Vikings. Uh, you know, I can't think of any other guys right now, but guys that get prone to get hurt a lot. That you always pick up a handcuff for them. So those guys are always good. They're probably going to be a lot of free agents because unless there's an injury to them to the main guy, then that guy will be picked up. So
Yeah, there's like pros and cons to going to do both strategies, right? So my strategy is get use your waiver and see how it goes. Then your strategy is no, save it and wait and get the guy that you're supposed to get. So if you wait, then there was that chance that well I should have waited because I should have used it on that guy. Or if you wait, it's like oh dang, if I only saved my waiver to get up that guy that was supposed to give me the golden ticket or whatever. So you can't really predict that. It just feels I think it's just how you play the game. I play like a maniac, and like I said, I'm gonna use my waivers on whoever I feel like I need or have potential. But there's nothing wrong with saving it too because saving it could also give you the golden ticket too. But then it's a lot of different factors. But something you said that's also important is the free agents. The free agents can get you so much more, a lot of value. So yeah, it's important that you look at those guys too.
yeah, I think there's pros
Uh,
and cons, like you said, to both methods. It's how you
mhm.
play it, and I
Just
think
how you
that's
play the game.
yeah, it makes that's how it makes fantasy football fun as well too.
Mhm,
Like the
mhm,
strategic factor
mhm.
of it. It's like how you kind of play like chess or something like that. Like your next move and all that kind of stuff like that. It's just you know you make your move and then you wait for somebody else to make their move. So it's good. Like that makes it fun. If we all kind of play the same way, we all kind of just rush to pick up free agents or waiver moves. There'd be nobody left. It'd be kind of rosters would be all kinds of in a mess.
Yeah, and I also want to speak on Romeo Dobbs. That guy's terrible. I had him all year long. I actually drafted him.
Yeah.
Uh, a lot of butterfingers,
So
a lot of headaches.
there were
Definitely
players that you obviously drafted this year that you liked, of course, that you might have had before or never had before. Um, but then there are players that you looked at like, oh man, I want to get those players. Are there any on your radar that you say, possibly that you have this year, and you say, I will probably never get them again, and then are there players that that you saw on other teams and stuff like, oh, I definitely want to go after them this year, next year.
Some names that come to mind real quick. The guys that I always want but I never get. Travis Kelsey. Travis Kelsey. I'm like I want to draft him as Travis Kelsey, but then like you get like number one and number two pick, whatever, right? Or from picks 1 to 4. You're, I mean, getting a tight end that early to me personally, I feel like it's kind of a waste. I would
I think
probably
it is.
only draft him if it's like 5 or after. But
Yeah.
most people they value him so high that 5 or after he's probably not gonna be there. So that's why, yeah, he's like that white whale that I'll probably never get. Uh, but your other question was guys that you were surprised. I was surprised by.
No, so there was guys that you saw on your that you didn't weren't able to roster that you wanted to get probably like, aim for next
Oh,
year, and maybe guys that you had in your team this year that you probably say, I'm probably
oh.
never gonna drafting this guy ever again.
Okay, well I'm never drafting. I'm never drafting Romeo Dobbs. I don't know why I did it. The reason why is probably because I read something that he had a good chemistry with Aaron Rodgers.
Are you sure it
Um,
wasn't a free agent pickup or anything?
no, I'm pretty sure I drafted that dude like
Okay.
really late, but I think I did draft that guy. And then guy that I really want was I mean Mahomes. Definitely want Mahomes and Justin Jefferson. Like
Uh,
those are guys that like I wanted those guys, but I just didn't get the opportunity to draft them.
okay. So for me, it's obvious. I'm probably never drafting Matt Stafford again. Doesn't matter. Yeah, my
I
Super
should
Bowl
laugh at you
hangover
some
for
more.
sure. I drafted Matt Ryan as well. Like I think his years of golden. I thought for sure going to the Colts, like new team, better, would be better, but that was a disaster. Those quarterbacks, those all the other players have done pretty well for me. The ones I drafted, so I can't really complain about those guys. But guys, I probably have my eye on for sure are like the wide receivers we talked about, are like Cup. Never had a Cup
Hmm.
or a Diggs for sure.
Hmm.
Yeah, like one of those tight ends you mentioned. You know, I had Herbert one year before, but yeah, I wouldn't mind getting a Burrow or maybe a
Hmm.
Trevor Lawrence next year, maybe even a golf. Like those guys, just take a flyer on those guys, because I think they can only get better because the teams are the teams are just going to surround with more talent.
Yeah, I actually picked up golf a couple of weeks. The weeks that I feel like he was gonna kill it, like this year. I think I used him in the game where it was the Seahawks against, yeah, the Seahawks against the Lions, and both Geno Smith and Jared Goff got like 40 plus points.
Yeah,
So yeah, it's a lot of those guys are really just like matchup dependent. If you're gonna have like a backup quarterback, those are the games that you just like, um, yeah, just throw them in there because they're bound to do at least decent for you.
yeah. So yeah, that's pretty much what we have for our wrap up. Like, do you have anything else you want to bring up?
Now I'm just gonna say it one more time. Make sure you get a good quarterback. All right. If you're to take any team over this year, get a quarterback next year. It's gonna make a big difference in how your season goes. And
Yeah, I
then
mean, in most cases, it's like what, a 10 to 12 man league, right? So there's only like 12 quarterbacks. Like probably about five of them are like elites. To like the seven are good. So and if you get the backups are kind of hard to gauge. So uh, yeah, it's slim pickings. Like it. I remember back in the day where fantasy football, like there were loads of wide receivers, loads of running backs and quarterbacks. You could load your team up, but now it's like things have changed. Two back system now. All kinds of different things. So yeah, it's gonna change. So definitely for sure. It was a fun season. I didn't make the playoffs in either of my leagues, but hey, I'm still gonna come and play. Like I love football, love fantasy football. And then I love the whole thing about the camaraderie of playing amongst your friends, and yeah, it just makes football more interesting.
yeah, yeah, it actually does. make it more fun. Definitely would not watch football as much if it wasn't for fantasy, to be honest. But yeah, we've been playing this league for what, over 10 years. It's a rotation of the same guys and a couple of different guys here and there.
Yeah.
Makes Sundays a lot more interesting. Um, the crap talking aspect is also funny
Oh yeah,
too.
this makes it
Yeah,
more fun, I think too. Because like
yeah,
you're just it's like my guys are gonna beat your guys. It's easy. Like that's always fun, and yeah, like you said, it just makes it more fun. I find myself I haven't been able to watch as many of the games, but it's kind of like a mentality, kind of like where you set it and forget it, kind of. Like you just the app just does so much for you, and I always encourage people to play fantasy football, even if they're kind of like new. I was helping a friend this year. I helped him last year, last couple of years, but he asked me for help, and I've helped mentor his team and kind of like where to pick, who to pick, and who to draft and all that kind of stuff. And I find it exciting too because like I'm not, I'm kind of playing in a third league myself. But I find it enjoyable when people pick up the same kind of interest, especially like fantasy football. Because they want to learn more about it and they play. It's fun too. You can see it in a different perspective through different players too. So.
yeah. How far did that guy go when you were helping?
So he didn't. He was like seventh place or something. So like one or actually he dropped to 10th actually, but it was just like different different leagues, different rules. So I usually just like to talk about standard stuff. There's no like keeper leagues or using money to for waivers and all that kind of stuff. I think that just makes it more complicated. I think what with the system we have is pretty straightforward. It's easy for everyone to pick up and enjoy more.
Yeah,
So.
everything's pretty advanced,
Uh,
pretty basic, pretty
Yeah,
standard,
so
pretty
like
uh,
anybody, anytime anyone talks about fantasy football, like just ask about it. I'm always like, wanting to tell people about it. Encouraging them to play, even if they don't know. It's like I will help you. I will help you. I will give you free advice to help you play, just so you can understand it. Because I like people playing it. I like people talking about it. Yeah, it just gives you something else to do.
and then yeah, for next year, hopefully we do like an episode before the draft. That
Oh
way we
yeah,
can
for
kind of
sure.
run
Like
down.
probably after the draft too, maybe get all the players that were drafted and see like, which ones make good impacts, might for some teams. I always like this year I did assessment of like all the position players like this year and said how I think they were going to do. And then be good to have your perspective on it as well for next year before before the season starts.
Yeah, and it's also really hard to like give your opinion on what's gonna happen because every year is gonna be something different.
Of course,
Some
yeah,
rookie guy's gonna blow up. Someone's gonna
yeah,
get hurt. Teams like change coaches.
yeah,
Team change their scheme.
yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of different factors, but it should be interesting.
It's fun. It's fun to talk about though. It's always just fun to like assume or guess or predict what's going to happen. So especially it's always like getting new toys. Like new players come in and players get traded or signed to new teams. So it's always fun to do
Mhm.
that. So, but
Yeah, it's gonna be an exciting year. It's gonna be an
yeah.
exciting year. I'm actually looking forward to see how this season ends. But one last question: who's going to Super Bowl, Randy?
Ooh, a good one. Okay, so Super Bowl, huh? So AFC, I'm gonna say, what? I'm gonna say the Bills for the AFC, and for the NFC, I'm probably gonna shock a lot of people by saying this, but I think that I think it's gonna be the Cowboys, Bills and Cowboys.
Yeah, some kind of like that.
And for you?
I actually think I don't really care about any other team. I think the Chiefs are just gonna win it. I think the Chiefs are just gonna win it
Well,
by
who's in
sheer
the NFC
will.
then? Who's in the NFC then against the Chiefs then?
What's the top three in the NFC right now?
I think it's Vikings, 49ers, Cowboys, Eagles.
I'll go Niners.
Yeah, I forgot about
I
that.
think the Niners will get there based off sheer hype and just like the momentums that they have right now.
So like a rematch of a couple years ago, Chiefs and 49ers, huh?
Yeah. I mean, if you think about it, also the Bills too. Dang.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's gonna be interesting to see how the playoffs pan out.
Yeah, I like
Uh,
the format
but
this year too. More another team gets in, and then only the first round team gets a bye. So,
yeah, but I'm picking the Chiefs, the
okay.
chefs.
Um, I'm picking the Bills. There you go. But so
Okay, all right,
yeah,
okay.
all right. Yeah, it's just it's just a prediction. So, but yeah, it was a fun season. Thanks for joining me on these couple sessions. Hopefully, we can make it a frequent thing. I'd like to thank everyone that like to comment, subscribe, watch the videos. I like doing this kind of stuff. I'm gonna definitely be working on editing and everything and putting more emphasis into this thing and making it more fun and enjoyable. So thanks for watching this wrap up of the fantasy football season. It was fun. Congratulations too for placing second and losing to my brother. So I hope to do better next year. I would look forward to it. So, but thanks for watching. Thanks for nerding out to our nonsense. Thanks for fantasy into football, all that good stuff. And we'll see you guys next season. All right. Thanks for watching,
Yeah,
guys.
next
Bye.
season.
See ya.